Hello ocean people! Today we're going to talk about underwater video basics with an emphasis on editing your video on your computer. I'm Brent Durand with the Brent Durand Underwater YouTube channel for learning underwater photography. So we have a number of different SeaLife cameras in front of me. I've got the SeaLife Sport Diver housing for iPhone, I've got the Reefmaster RM4K, and then I've also got the Micro 3.0. So we'll discuss the video editing workflow and the very basics that anyone can do for editing video on all of these cameras or shot with all of these cameras. But first, let's talk about some of the basics for shooting underwater video. Tip number one is to remember to hold your camera stable. So if you're one hand holding your camera, you might want to bring in a second hand to try and keep it stable, or even get an arm and a tray system so that you can easily use your two hands to hold the camera stable. You definitely don't want to be going like this or your viewer might get seasick. Tip number two is to try and shoot straight shots and avoid any sort of extra movement like panning. And tip number three is to try and shoot short clips. Now, some folks I know will hit the record button and leave the camera on for the whole dive. And that's great if you want to tell the story of everywhere you're looking on your dive, but try and shoot short clips because it's going to be a lot easier to sort through and to edit and build a film like we'll do in just a few seconds. And our fourth tip, and that is to try and shoot up into the water column, into the lighter water. If you're shooting down or straight down on a subject, you're not going to get the same quality shot as if you're shooting horizontally or up into that lighter water. And lastly, in terms of video resolution, we have a lot of different resolution options on our various cameras, but I like to shoot at 1080p just because it's easy. You can upload it right to social media from your mobile device or connect to your mobile device via Wi-Fi, like with the RM4K, and upload right to social media. So it's just an easy resolution to work with. 4K is fantastic for advanced video editors, but again, you're going to need to know how to post-process that on your computer. In terms of frame rates, I like to keep it simple, maybe 60 frames per second. That still allows you great compatibility with your devices and the ability to slow footage down even by half as much to create 50% slow motion. So what's the best software for editing underwater video? Well, if we're talking about a desktop or a laptop and not any sort of apps on our mobile phone, I would look towards the free versions. If you're on Mac OS, you'll look towards iMovie, and if you're on Windows, you'll look towards Windows Movie Maker. Now, both of those softwares are free, they're easy to use, they're intuitive, and really help you understand the video editing workflow and how to create a nice story through your video sequence. And that's a skill that even if you do get more involved in your editing process, you can carry over those skills and that learning and that storytelling capability into more advanced and complex software that you'd have to pay for. So for today's video, let's focus on these two free softwares. The first thing we want to do in our video editing process is import the footage onto our computer. Now, if you're using the Sport Diver, it's easy. All your photos are already probably on the Photos software on Mac OS, or you can port them over from your phone onto your computer through your phone based on the way you would do that for any other photos. If you're shooting the Reefmaster 4K, you'll simply plug in the USB to your computer, turn on the camera, and then you'll see the drive appear, and then you can open that drive and click, select, and drag the footage over onto your desktop or onto your C drive. And you'll do the same thing if you're using the Micro 3.0. You'll plug that USB into your computer, turn the camera on, and you will select PC, at which point the drive will appear on your computer. You open it up, you select the photos and videos, drag them onto your C drive, and now you're going to be set up with any of these cameras with your footage already on your computer. One good note here is that it's always best practice to keep multiple copies and backups. So an external drive is a great thing to add if you want to keep a second copy of all of your footage, just in case something corrupts or you happen to lose your primary copy. So now let's talk about the editing process, and I'm going to jump into the computer here so you can see exactly what I'm doing on my screen using iMovie. And now that our footage is on the computer, it probably looks something like this with a whole lot of clips. And if you're like me, you might have shot several scenes multiple times, waiting for the right movement or waiting for the right subject behavior. So what I'm going to do is delete all the bad footage while also trying to build a mental storyboard in my head. Maybe even build a little narrative arc with the clips that I do have that tells a story of the dive or about the marine life that I saw. So I'm doing two things at once. One, I'm getting rid of the extra footage that I don't need, that's garbage because it takes up space and clutters up the editing process. But two, I'm starting to figure out what I'm going to do in my head once I start actually editing. So now, once you've gone through and pared down your footage and hopefully built a mental storyboard, you're going to have a much smaller selection of footage that will be easier to import into the video editing software. And now that we're ready to start editing our video, there's one more note I need to make, which is about music. Now, just like photos and videos, music is copyrighted by the artist. And the social media platforms and other places you might share your content are very smart, and they can instantly recognize copyrighted music. So if you create your video around a copyrighted music track, let's say from your favorite artist, odds are it will get flagged by some of these platforms and you may not be able to upload it, or you may have ads that you don't want running in front of that footage. So the best practice is to use royalty-free music that has an open license that the artist has said, yes, you're free to use in your creative projects. Now, YouTube Audio Library has a deep archive of a lot of great music that you'll have no problem using. So I like to use that to find really cool music for the videos, knowing I won't run into any licensing issues out there no matter where I share the video. Now that we've organized our video footage and have it on the computer, it's time to start editing. I've got iMovie open right here, but this workflow will be very similar if you're using Windows Movie Maker. I'm going to create a new project or a new movie. And now you'll see that I can import my media, and it's very simple. You can drag and drop. Of course, like everything on the computer, there's multiple ways, but dragging and dropping is really easy to import your footage. And now, because I've gone through my footage and I have a mental storyboard, I know roughly what order I'm going to drop my clips in to the timeline in. So all you have to do is drag and drop the first clip into the timeline, and you'll notice that as I scrub over the clip that I can see what's happening in the frame up in the display window right here. And then if you want to trim the clip, you can just drag either end, and then you can cut out various pieces of the clip. So you can do that from the front or the back. So let's say this is a piece of the clip I like. Okay, that's great. And we can keep building like that and keep adding clips. So time to drop the next clip. There we go. Sometimes when you're editing, you want to get a bigger view of the clips you're working on. So there should be a tool to zoom in and out on this timeline and allow you to see a lot more of the clips all in order so you can edit them and start building a longer movie. And now we can keep adding clips to our timeline and trimming them to make sure we're telling that perfect story based off that mental storyboard we developed. One tip to remember is that you can also drag clips in between other clips, so you don't have to do the full sequence in order. And once you've got your clips in place and you've got a rough cut, you can drag the music in, and the music will sit underneath the clips. And what I will do is zoom out in this particular case and trim the music. And you do this in the exact same way you would for the clips. Now let's zoom back in a little bit. And now you'll see that I've got music working along with the video. Now you can pick the perfect spot in the music, the clips, to go with exactly the sequence of the action you have and make sure the music lines up, and trim your edit so it matches the beat of the music. Lastly, it's time to export our completed film from iMovie or Windows Movie Maker by clicking the Share button and Export File. So at this point, you're going to have a nice file that you can store on your computer, you can upload anywhere you'd like, and you can share with all your friends on social media. And there we have it. That's our basic editing workflow using a PC or a desktop computer. Of course, you can do this on your mobile device too. The sync is so easy with all of these cameras, but that's for you to experiment, and maybe we'll cover that in a future video. Once again, I'm Brent Durand with Brent Durand Underwater YouTube channel, and hope you guys learned something. Of course, leave questions in the comments or reach out to SeaLife. We're happy to answer all of your questions. Thanks, and see you in the next video.